Welcome to Talk of the Town. This is show number 360. We'd really like to thank our underwriters, One Stop Painting with Jeff Cohen. Hey, Jeff. And Brewster PC Solutions. And Dave Gallerani with offices on Sandwich and Samoset Street with Cape Auto. Also, Trifletti and Costa on Long Pond Road. We've got the Three Amigos with special amigo Josh Rioux tonight. But first, we'd like to go over to a PSA with the Litter Lady.
Good evening, everyone. I am the Litter Lady. And I'm out on this rainy night, first of all, because I like to go out dressed like this. Who could help it, right? I'm gorgeous. Ooh. I know. Thank you. I know I am. You wish you had the outfit, the hat. I even have beautiful rain boots on tonight. But I'm here to talk about litter, because we have litter. We have a lot of litter. You see it. You may even be some of the people that leave the litter. I hope not. It's time for hometown cleanup. We do it twice a year, and this is our 10th hometown cleanup. And this one is happening on Saturday, November 1st. And here's the phone number. You can help, all right? You call Patrick Farah at this phone number, 508-747-1620, extension 204. Call that number, and then Patrick is going to give you purple trash bags, because these are the bags that the DPW will pick up when we fill them. Do you know, gentlemen, a couple of times ago when we did cleanup, we picked up 900 bags of trash.
Awesome.
This big. I mean, that's good news and that's bad news, right? That there was 900. That's just, not
that's
every.
From my front lawn.
Yeah. Anyway, so you can call Patrick, come out on November 1st and help us clean up. The other thing that you can do that's really important is stop using these single-use plastic bags.
Boo.
Boo. Instead, get yourself a 99-cent bag that's going to last the rest of your life and take it to the grocery store with you. All you need is 2 or 3 of them instead of 9 or 10 or 15 of these. Right, gentlemen?
That's right.
If you were a sea turtle
Yes, ma'am.
And you were swimming in the ocean and you looked up in the air, what would this look like? Jellyfish. It would look like a jellyfish, and you would eat it and you would choke, and it would be very sad. Anyway, that's what you can do. The other thing is you can help other people learn not to litter. We used to know not to do that, but these days people are chucking things out their windows and dropping them on the ground and throwing them. Teach your kids not to litter. Kids, remind your parents not to litter. Come out with us on November 1st. Help us pick up litter. Call Patrick, get a purple plastic bag, and come on out and help the litter lady. Maybe we won't even need a litter lady after a while. Wouldn't that be good?
We'd miss you.
You would miss me. I'd find something else to do that would be equally as charming. Thank you so much. Hope to see you on November 1st. Thanks a lot.
What a great cause for the town of Plymouth. Get out there on November 1st. It's your town, and you should be responsible for it, and you should be out there cleaning. And we thank the litter lady every time she comes, because she's an important part of this community. And so let's move on to Three Amigos. Josh, you wanted to talk about litter, didn't you?
Yeah, it's ironic because I came in with that on top of mind and ran into the litter lady, so it was it was great. Back
up and hit her again.
Yeah, what's that?
He drove over and ran into her. Yeah.
So I was thinking, I live on 3A. I won't say exactly where, but in the vicinity of a liquor store and a convenience store. So I get the dual litter on my front yard of losing scratch tickets. Haven't found a winner yet.
No.
And empty liquor bottles, not full ones. We had talked about that'd be nice. Someone left me a nice little nip. But anyways, these people walking down the sidewalk finish their nip and just throw it into my front lawn or into the street. Same with the scratch tickets. You're walking and scratching. You get a loser, you throw it on the ground. And I think the big problem is, to me, beside the environmental ramifications that Litter Lady talked about, but just the lack of respect for your town, your community, and the other people that live in your community. And that, to me, is what really bothers me. I can't even get inside the head of somebody that thinks it's okay to take their McDonald's bag and just throw it out of the car. So that drives me crazy. And I pick it up, and, you know, ranting about this a little bit, I definitely like that there's a solution, and I just want to again remind everybody, hometown cleanup, I will be out there with a purple bag picking up the nip bottles that are thrown into my front yard and in my neighborhood vicinity. So I'm sure you guys will too, right?
Well, yeah, it's a great community effort, and I think not only does it clean up the town, but it makes people aware of stuff like that. I think it is a respect thing. It's respect for the town, and it's respect for other people's property. And I think we as a society lose respect of those things in a grand scheme. And I think that, you know, that we really need to focus on that more. We need to be part of our community, because this is our community and this is our world that we, you know, need to clean. And, you know, stop putting stuff on Josh's lawn. Right?
Please. Especially the empties. Come on.
Especially the empty. Yeah,
I was going to go by right after the show.
You immediately sitting there scratching tickets and drinking.
Now we probably will.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not against that. Just, you know, don't put it on my front yard.
Just put it on your front lawn.
Scratch a winner, you know, hey.
And it is amazing if you go through town. There's certain sections like downtown where, you know, we're a tourist destination, and that's our main source of income. And when tourists come and they see the trash barrels full of trash and trash overflowing and trash all over the place, that's not going to make them come back.
Yeah. It reflects negatively on all of us. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, but I know.
Well, it starts at the family level. It really does. I mean, when you set an example and you don't do it yourself as a parent, and you teach your children from when they're of the understanding age as they grow up not to do it.
Right.
So who is doing it?
Somebody's guilty.
Somebody's guilty.
Somebody's guilty. Let's find out. Call in if you're throwing trash out.
Yeah, we want to get inside your head.
We want to get inside your head. Josh wants to get inside
We need about 5,000 of the little ladies who can sit on the side of the road and write down the license plate.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's what she can do.
She needs 5,000 of her, but we don't have.
Throw me a winning
5,000 little
scratch
ladies.
ticket, you know? That's what I want. A winner, even a $5 one. Leave it on my
That brings me
stone wall.
to the referendum on the ballot for plastic bottles and charging funds for everything, not bottled water, fruit juice,
talked about that
plastics. I know we talked about that last time. I think we spoke about it, right? But we're talking about
it was
litter.
less than 7.
What percentage of that litter is plastic bottles, plastic juice bottles, etc.?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I know I see them, and I'm constantly picking them up.
So
I think it should pass, and that's the way I feel.
it should pass, and what should happen?
I think we should go up to 25 cents a can, 25
But
cents a
if
bottle.
it's not working at 5,
What makes you think it's going to work at 25?
right?
Well, keep raising it till it works.
Yeah,
That way I can make some money. I'll go around and pick up the bottles in town for $1 a piece, wouldn't you?
But just to start the argument, wouldn't it behoove us, if you're talking about it starts with the family, would it behoove us to talk about recycling and get into a custom of recycling instead of saying, all right, you got to pay 5 cents for that bottle? Because obviously, you know, the nip bottles, if they're 25 cents, they're still going to throw those nip bottles out in Josh's lawn.
I'll definitely pick. I'll happily pick them up though if they're 25 cents.
25 cents,
If I'm walking down the sidewalk and I see a quarter, I'm picking it up.
I'm going down Long Pond Road the last couple of nights after work, and there's some young lady with a 10-speed bike with flashing lights, and she's driving down the road, and she's picking up the 5-cent can bottles as she goes down the road. I mean, that's not the greatest thing in the world to be doing, but
but it is.
She's picking them up and making
be on a
herself a little
motorcycle
bit
if they
money
were
in the process. And I think you would see a lot less plastic bottles, and you're still going to see some because some people don't care about 5 cents. They're still going to see them, but I think you will cut down on the plastic bottles. Not the pieces of this, or plastic
No.
bags, or McDonald's bags. Maybe, maybe McDonald's, Burger King, and Dunkin' Donuts need to do something about the way they give you their product also.
They also talk about going away from plastic bottles, using your reusable sippy cup as a national thing. And they're also talking about outlawing the plastic bags. So Walmart and Stop and Shop can't have those plastic bags. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Less trash, the better.
The argument to me is transparent. They say it's not as sanitary, basically a message put out from the people that produce the bags and the styrofoam cups. But, you know, if you think about it, they've only really come into play in our lifetime. So how did mankind survive for, you know, hundreds of thousands of years with these unsanitary, you know, reusable things?
Because everything causes cancer now. And everything's bad for you.
They used to take the old bottles and wash them and reuse them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you were a kid, did you bring them back to the...
I'm not as old as a boogie band.
You're not as old as I am? Well, you look as old as
All right. That's a great thing again. Yes, it's Josh at the end.
Going. Right.
So recycling.
The town's doing it.
Yep.
I'm proud of Plymouth for putting the program into effect.
You talked to JB, and JB says we're down in tonnage, we're up in recycling, we're doing a great job with recycling. The town is you know, I think that kicking and screaming, people didn't like change in this town, they never liked change, but it's working. You know, they redid the Beaver Dam Road transfer station, which is phenomenal now. I don't know if you've been there, but it's much better than it was. And they redid recycling, the curbside recycling. I know I used to produce 3 bags of trash a week, and now I'm like, if a bag.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I know it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1 bag for me a week, too, with my family, and the rest of it's all recycle in the recycle bin.
Yeah, that recycling bin's overflowing every week.
You know what I'm wondering? What happens, though? Do companies buy up the like when the town gets all the recyclables and they sort them out?
Yeah.
What then happens to them? I mean, this sounds like kind of a dumb question.
ABC does it. The town doesn't do it.
Okay,
Right.
so
ABC is the
does it.
contractor. ABC is actually building a facility in New Bedford to take that trash and put it into some kind of pellet.
And then they sell it to the plastic companies, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Don't forget to mention the telephone number.
Oh, yes, this is a live show. Please call in. Dave Gallerani can't be the only one. 508-830-3971. Give us a call if you like what we're talking about, what you don't like what we're talking about, or you want us to talk about something else. Or, Karen, if you want to call and tell us that we're doing a great job.
Well, speaking of change, why don't we talk about Charter Review Committee coming up again?
Yeah.
Just had town meeting on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have a couple of comments as it relates to town meeting.
Oh, you're going to make me do the lead.
You can lead. And I will follow.
I think the Charter Review, I think it's sad to me that Trifletti's having a hard time finding people for those positions, for the Charter Review. Because I think the Charter Review, and I think that we really need to look at our form of government as it is right now, because it's, you know, they're excited that they do town meeting in one day. And when they do town meeting in one day, all right, I'll get into the thick of it. I watched town meeting. We spent 45 minutes to an hour talking about the electronic voting, whether we should do it or not. And then we went on to the budget items, and we spent 5 minutes on that. And that bothers me, because it seems like, you know, when we're talking about budget items, we're talking about millions of dollars. You can't conceive that. You conceive the, what was it, $5,000 for the electronic voting? So you can conceive that number. And I really feel that one of the things that it disappointed me that the moderator did not want to get into conflict of interest. He said he wasn't going to deal with it, and he's not going to take any questions about it. I think that was, it's something that we should talk about. We had a commission that we formed, and they went to the state, and the state said that And there's a little conflict about this, but the state basically said that, yes, the state says you should, recuse yourself if you have a conflict of interest. But it does say in the bottom of that law that if the town has something that is stronger than the state, the town bylaw trumps the state. Just to read our charter, notwithstanding any general or special laws to the contrary, any representative town meeting member who also holds a position of employment by the town shall be prohibited from voting. Shall be. And when you're talking legal talk, shall be means you do it. Not may or must. It shall be. Shall be prohibited from voting on any town meeting article in which such employee or such employee's department has a financial interest. Such representative town meeting member shall notify the town clerk in writing prior to the representative town meeting session or during such session, such time as the member becomes so aware as to any articles giving rise to such financial interest. I know in the spring town meeting, someone got up and asked how many people have given you such a letter before the town meeting, and the answer was one. This time, I know that there was a couple more people that recused themselves from certain votes. I just think that it's interesting to me that nobody wants to talk about it. And I think that nobody wants to talk about it because they're concerned about losing business or concerned about retribution. And that, to me, is not a form of government. Comments?
I have a few. Number one, town meeting has been streamlined a little bit by the use of the precinct chairs and a lot more informative town meeting representatives. Not that the budget shouldn't have been discussed a little bit further. I do agree with that. But when you talk about changing the government, the Charter Review Committee is not put in place to change the government.
No. The charter.
Let me continue. So,
no, you're right.
The last time the Charter Review Committee reviewed the charter, they came up with actually changing the form of government. Right? Which is not what the Charter Review Committee is supposed to be doing. They should be looking at the existing charter, and we can make these lines that you discussed, that Mr. Trifoletti says he can't do anything. They should recuse themselves, but they don't have to recuse themselves. If the charter is rewritten, and we can get into that word shall, because I remember that word, town meeting shall commence 2 weeks prior to a certain date, and all of a sudden town meeting was changed because of the word shall happened to be in the language.
But that was a
review. It doesn't really require it.
Okay.
So when we discuss our existing charter versus a charter review committee to make this more stringent as far as conflict of interest is concerned. Because you did mention we can be more stringent with a town charter than state law. Can't be less, it can be more. So I think whatever charter review committee is put together, and I'm thinking about even volunteering for the upcoming charter review committee. I haven't made my mind up 100% yet, but I don't have much time. He wants letters in by, I think, Halloween, October 31st.
He doesn't have enough people yet.
He doesn't have enough people yet. So this charter review committee should be concentrating on making our existing charter better, not trying to change the form of government. 3 people are on the phone?
No, that's what he has.
He always 3 people. We just heard that he has 3 people for the charter review committee currently.
So just an aside, if I may, if you're out there and you're interested in the form of government that we have and making it better and working on bylaws and charter review, get in touch with Steve Trifoletti, the moderator.
Because when you do volunteer for something like that, it's a lot of work. As far as
your second wife, right?
The town of Plymouth is my girlfriend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not even a miss.
That's the line that my wife uses.
That's right.
You're going to see your girlfriend again,
Right.
and I said, "Oh, yes, absolutely, again."
Right, and it's I commend people like you that are so involved because you care about this town. And one problem I have is there's a fair amount of people who either don't vote or occasionally vote, but they use the newspaper and the Speak Out as their voting booth, and they complain about everything under the sun. But I don't see those same people getting involved, and that's what is.
Well, when you talk about conflict of interest, you're talking about people that may have family members as town employees or sitting town employees, and I don't know exactly who they are or whatever the case may be. I know that I can't.
Excuse me, gentlemen, we have a phone call.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, we've got a caller. Great. Caller, welcome.
Well, I'm not too sure if you're going to like this. Hello, Wrestling, how are you?
I'm good, Karen.
It's the boss.
I said to call and say we were doing a good job.
Yes. I just want to get it out there that town meeting just doesn't show up on town meeting day to discuss the budget. The warrant opens, we discuss the budget. We pick up the phone, we make our phone calls, we do a lot of homework. We go to the caucuses, we discuss it. If there's anything that that we need more information, by God, we find it out. And we have a wonderful finance committee chair, and Lynn Barrett, and Melissa Origi, and all of them. And town meeting is not like it used to be. People do their homework. We just don't show up at town meeting and say, yep, we're going to pass a budget.
I appreciate that coming from you because I know you do your homework. I've seen you do your homework. I've been on both sides of you doing your homework.
The left and the right?
Right. But do you feel that's a majority at town meeting?
Yeah, I do, because you know why? We're demanding more. The precinct chairs, between the precinct chairs and John Moody, I will say that.
Yep.
We are demanding more of our town meeting representatives, and they're up for the challenge, and this is the way it's been going. It's really wonderful.
But Karen, if
I don't know anybody who cracks their book open on town meeting floor. Maybe years ago that's what it was, but not today.
Okay, but isn't it indicative of the people who go to the caucuses and how few go to the caucuses?
What do you mean?
Well, if you look at the caucuses, I know in the spring caucuses, I can't speak to this fall caucuses, but in the spring caucuses, they were very thinly attended. There was not a lot of people at those caucuses. I know a couple precincts.
Presentation forum? Are you talking
Yes.
presentation forum?
Yes.
Caucuses?
Both.
Presentation forum, since it is televised, a lot of them will watch on TV. But don't forget, these are the people, and I know them, that also pick up the phone.
Yep.
They're not lazy. So that's what's happening there. And presentation forum, they come in, they filter in and out, but most of them watch on television. And there's a great debate. The caucuses are working caucuses. We attended a number of them. I know one fellow, Kevin Joyce, he goes to every single one.
Yep.
And I know others do the same thing.
Well, Kevin has told me that he's gone to a few. Kevin has told me that he's gone to a
It's
few
just
of
these
them.
two now, right? Maybe you and I should just go home and
A few of them that were very poorly attended. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Okay. Is Tim going to talk?
Yeah, Tim's going to talk now. Go, you talk to
Going
him.
to talk?
Karen.
Yes.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
With the way I just was talking to wrestling just before you called,
yeah.
and said that town meeting is streamlined due to the precinct chair meetings, the caucuses, the combined caucuses, the work of the advisory and finance committee. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
It's not 100% every town meeting member, but it's a very large percentage of the town meeting members that are well informed before they even walk through the door
Well, that's
at
good.
Plymouth North High School during town meeting.
That's good.
So
Okay, guys, let Josh talk too.
Well, I was. My
Sold.
wheels have been turning this whole time, and what I was thinking was this: is that I think it's more of a discussion, not whether town meeting is an ideal form of representative government, but it's more, I think, general the apathy that sometimes exists in any democratic, society, whether you go on the state level or all the way up to, national politics. If you look at voter turnout and the amount of people that are actively involved and informed and educated, it's probably at an all-time low, at least on a national level.
The education
So,
end.
I think it's wonderful that Plymouth does have town meeting members that are educated and engaged and, ready to start an informed conversation. The other thing, the last thing I'll say is, I think town meeting form of government. Oh, no, that's funny.
Karen didn't want to listen to you either.
Oh my gosh, it's a little long-winded. But no, back to the form of government though. Town meeting government's been going on for hundreds of years in New England towns, and I grew up in Falmouth, Massachusetts, and it's the same form of government. It's a unique New England kind of thing, and I think anything will function well if people get involved. That's what it comes down to. Apathy is going to be the enemy of any form of government.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's a mayor with a city council, a town meeting, to me, it's just people need to get
Apathy
involved.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
Oh yeah. And you look at Kingston. Kingston's got an open town meeting.
Yeah.
Anybody can go.
Just show up and holler, throw
Yeah.
tomatoes, whatever
Yeah.
you want, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
It's fun.
Yeah.
I might go check that out. What do you
That could be a fun
Let's go
town
for a
meeting.
field trip.
Throwing tomatoes?
Why not? I get a lot of nip bottles we can kind of throw.
Yeah,
in.
there you go. And scratch tickets.
So
you
we
go.
go back to before Karen called. I think the charter can be really looked at and some adjustments made
Yep.
to the existing charter, right? But it takes a lot of work. It's not easy
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. Any charter review committee has gone through a lot of work and effort, especially the last one, even though town meeting voted it down. They didn't want to see their positions change.
Well, yeah, I spoke to the charter review chairman, and I said, "You're basically going to town meeting and saying we want to dissolve you." How do you feel about that?
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Well,
Exactly.
I'll ask you guys this. So, what is the process? So, charter review.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens? I mean, if there people on that committee make suggestions, is it voted?
At
Yes,
town,
it
the
goes
town
town
meeting
meeting.
floor.
Okay,
Town meeting
by
floor.
each change or each article,
Yep.
they're going to change.
Yep.
Correct.
All right.
Yep. Or they could just accept it but usually it'll be every
Oh, yeah.
section that's been changed will
Yeah.
be voted on, yes.
Okay.
So again, if you're interested in serving,
Yeah, please call Steve Trifletti, the moderator, because we need some people on the charter review. And Steve, Mr. Trifletti talks a lot about how the different commissions, the FinCom and the charter review and things like that he's trying to fill, and he has a difficulty time filling them, and that's the apathy that you talked about, Josh.
So, question, Rustin, can you just, to get on one of these committees, whether it's a charter review or finance, do you have to be an elected town
No.
meeting member?
No.
So anybody who's a resident of Plymouth can reach out
Right.
and take part in this.
Right, you can't be a FinCom member and a town
you
meeting.
can't be a town
Okay.
meeting member and an advisory and finance committee member at the same time.
So there you go. There's a separation of
Oh yeah,
Church and state.
Church and
that's what we're
state.
talking about. So they recuse themselves because potentially they'd be voting to dissolve the body. Correct?
Right, right, exactly.
Hopefully not. But
Well, let's look at what happened on Saturday at town meeting. After lunch, you lost about 10 to 12 town meeting members. The numbers drop off.
Those town meeting members that have done all their homework and involved.
Did I say that?
Oh, I was just
I
wondering.
didn't say that.
you got to move lunch a
I'm
little
saying,
later.
what I'm
That's all.
saying is some of the votes are severely affected by
Time of day.
time of day, especially
Yep.
on a Saturday. Some town meeting members may have some important issues to take care
Yes.
of after lunch,
Yep.
whether they be family issues, work, or whatever the case may be. I hear
funny
somebody
in there.
laughing out there in the
There's a
background.
peanut gallery.
But with that digital readout on how the town meeting members voted, you could see
If your town meeting member,
was still there.
Yeah.
right.
How about
know,
this, guys? Here's a
half-
suggestion.
after
People
10
leave after
o'clock.
lunch, you said, right?
They did on Saturday.
How
yeah.
about an open bar? People stick around when there's an open bar.
There you go.
I've seen it.
You control the empty net.
Throw the empties
That's
over at
what you
Josh's house. We all come back to your house.
Just beer
That's
and
the
wine
theme.
wrestling, not the nip bottles.
Oh,
but
not
I
the
think
nip bottle. Beer and wine's okay.
You know, you had a couple of important articles that came up after lunch that were severely affected by the people that weren't there to vote.
So, what's your take on that?
I would have hoped that they all stayed. And if you're a voting person and paying attention to who was at town meeting, I hope you pay attention to who was there and if they left or not after lunch and how they vote.
And that is one of the things the state did say about town meeting members is the town has the right to, if they feel they're a conflict of interest or they feel they're not voting, to vote them out, not vote them, next time they run for re-election. And that is, the problem I have with that statement is when we've got 10% of the town doing that voting, it's tough to say, enough people are watching and
Well,
saying.
it's a democratic society. If you only have 10% show up to the polls, 10% of the people are going to control who's in office.
That's what I'm saying.
But
That's what I'm saying.
it's I think larger, guys. If you look at again, not to go to DC and
Please
the
go to
dysfunction there, but look up your rep or congressman or anybody and see how many votes they actually make and attend and how many they're absent for. And I think
right.
people would be astounded.
Oh.
And I'm not by any means picking on our congressional delegation. I'm saying pull any guy or gal out of U.S. Congress and see how many votes that they were there to cast.
Yeah.
And you'd be blown away.
We have a peanut gallery.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Your number one fan is waiting to say hello. Say hello to...
David Guillory.
Hello, number one fan.
Well, I figured you missed me. So.
Please.
That whole thing about the town meeting members that leave at noontime, it's always the same ones.
And they get reelected.
I always watch. It's always the same meeting members that don't show up at all.
Yeah.
Which is a friend of mine and a neighbor who said he's not going to run again. And it's always the same couple of people that leave at noontime or, they don't come back. And I don't know why. I mean, it's like I usually just figure out I give up the day and that's the end of it. But
Right. Well, it's
I'm more apt to come late because I'm not like an early morning person. and I don't like to listen to all the politicians talk for an hour. So I like to come at 9 o'clock when the meeting actually starts.
Right.
But...
So you walked in with Ted Bozen, right? Teddy would do the same thing, yeah.
Well, and it's I think that you're right. You say that that's a lost day, but you're an elected official for the town, and then that's your job is that day. I think that's part of the job.
So to leave, don't you think it's selfish because you're representing people as a voice, and if you're not there,
Exactly.
then they don't have a voice. And
Exactly.
that to me is inexcusable.
And then you
frankly.
go back to that
I'm
apathy.
disappointed also, Mr. Tripletti, not bringing up the
Conflict of interest.
ethical conflict of interest, whatever you want to call it. And it's funny because my wife is a retired teacher, and I may have voted on some of her races in the past, and inadvertently not really paid attention to that. You're voting on all these different things. And now looking back on it, she's retired now, so I suppose it doesn't matter as much. But I think people need to be pointed out, and I think it did make a difference. There were some people that backed off and didn't vote on that stuff. But to be fair to the public sector, the private sector, I will tell you that I was horrified several years ago when a certain attorney from town who does a lot of zoning issues got up and voted, and he was sitting across from me on the aisle on a situation that he had just basically he was the attorney for the people doing the thing.
Right.
I don't remember if it was the Pine Hill or who it was. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But
We won't mention any names.
I said, how can you vote on this? And he said, oh no, town meeting, you can vote. It doesn't matter.
Right, and which brings you to the fact that one of the things the Charter Review Committee really needs to do is not only look at this verbiage, but make it known what the conflict of interest is. We had last year, Trifletti hosted a thing on conflict of interest, which was poorly attended, that talked about, this is what your conflict of interest is. I know I'm on the Harbor Committee, and I had to go through a little course and sign a thing that said I went through this course that shows what's conflict of interest and what's not. That's huge.
All the officials have to go through that.
Right, right.
Yeah, education's the key, because I think a lot of people don't even know.
We all live in town, and we're all related, I don't want to say we're all related to everybody, but Plymouth's a small town. It's still a small town. Everybody knows everybody.
Right.
Everybody has a friend or a neighbor or a spouse or a worker. We're all connected, so we all have to be somewhat respectful, I think, or not somewhat respectful. We should be respectful to everybody's situation in their work and what they do. And it's a very difficult situation for a lot of us to say, well, this person, well, this group should not get a raise or should get a raise or whatever. I mean, if you went to my business, Pixel Business, I got 30 people working for me, and you said, hey, if you guys want to vote for a raise, you're all going to get a raise.
Right.
What the hell do you think they're going to say?
Right.
They're going to say yes.
Right. No, we wouldn't do that to you.
Well, you can vote, but I'm still the dictator of this place.
How'd you feel about the 75-foot height article?
I voted for it this time. I didn't vote it for the last time, and it's still, I don't know.
What changed your mind? If you don't mind me asking.
Restricted the area a little bit more.
Yep.
And was this
I
out
don't
at the
think it's
airport?
The worst thing.
No.
They went back and forth. They spent a lot of time talking about the parking and a number of the other things. It's funny that you guys mentioned how we spent a lot of time talking about certain things and no time talking about the
budget.
The money we spend.
Right.
But I think Karen was right. I think the caucuses, I noticed that my caucus, I got a bunch of new town meeting members that are very paying attention and really anxious to be there and to vote. And they worked very hard. And
Good.
We had a lot of people at our caucus this time. And it wasn't only a couple of years ago that we didn't have enough people in our district running. So the people were paying attention, I noticed, at my caucus. And
Good.
I thought they did a good job, whether you liked their vote or didn't like their vote. So
Yeah, Dave, that particular article, we were talking about parking, right? I mean, if you took a building and tried to double the size and the footprint would double, you're still going to need the same amount of parking. You know what I'm saying? So if the building goes up, you're still going to need the same amount of parking. If you try to take that footprint and use more land, you're still going to need the parking. So what happens if you don't go with the height? You're going to take more land up, and that's what we're not trying to do. And the industrial parks are only so big. And what was the other one that brought up? The stretch code, LEED certified, right?
Right.
A lot of the cities and towns and some of the building commissions that I've spoken to, some of them don't support it. And the reason being because it's not a level playing field. When you have one community that has accepted it and another community that hasn't, the community that has accepted it puts them at a disadvantage because business is going to go to the town that doesn't have the stretch code because it costs them more money to build the building to the stretch code. So if it's going to be enforced, it should be across the entire state and even the playing field.
It's even like they used to have the tax, the meal tax thing, and the restaurateurs would complain that everybody's going to go, or smoking, everybody's going to go smoke in Kingston because they allowed smoking in Plymouth did.
Right.
They didn't.
The same kind of argument,
Right. That's what happened to Handlebar Harry's, right?
Well, that's what they claim, but I think Mom is still in business.
Yeah.
I think Kingston went to no smoking in the restaurants later.
Yeah, they did.
Anyway, so.
It was funny because after they had done it in Plymouth for several years, and then I went to Boston, we went to a show or something, we went with some friends, and we walked in, and they said, well, let's get a drink afterwards. So we went into a bar someplace, and we walked in, and the smoke hit you like a hammer. And it was like, holy moly, I forgot what this was about, And and you got to go home and take a shower afterwards. And you were talking about, you know, the bottles and cans on the side of the road, and I was sitting here watching you guys, and I was saying, yeah, I'd like to have $1 for every time I have to pick up a cigarette butt in my parking lot.
And we know where those cigarette butts came from, the street, right, where they're doing all the construction.
Oh yeah, don't even go there. I don't even go there. Oh my God.
I want to go back to that.
You guys go back and have your show back. But, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Great job.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Kevin.
The Big Dig of Plymouth, Somerset Street.
Oh, yeah.
I'd
Right in
like,
front of your shop.
I'd like to go back to that article on the 75-foot height.
Yeah. Just so Josh is up to speed.
That might take a
Industrial
while.
park.
How much time do you have?
That's right.
Industrial park.
Okay.
Only.
Right. They're raising the height limit.
Okay. And it's at 75 now. Is that
No,
town-wide?
we want it 75.
Okay. Where is it town-wide now?
It's 35 feet. It's
35
town-wide.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just want industrial parks to be able to go up to 75.
Okay.
So businesses can.
Because I heard there was something out at the airport that they wanted. They were building a temple or a church, and they wanted a cross.
Well,
and it
that's
would've gone-
where we get into the special permit versus as of right.
Okay.
What we were trying to do with that 75-foot as of right in the industrial park was to stop these businesses from having to go through the special permit process in those particular areas only.
Okay.
Because if you have to go through the special permit process, which I believe in the special permit process in circumstances where it's required, we're trying to bring in industry into the town of Plymouth, and our zoned industry land is very limited. So if you allow the height to increase, potential industrial businesses will come to the town of Plymouth and go up with their building
How many
versus
stories
taking up
is
more
75
land.
feet?
75 feet, probably
5 stories?
No, I think it's more like 6 or 7 stories, somewhere in that
6 or
time
7
frame.
stories.
All right.
But it's an industrial park.
Yeah.
And I
well,
think,
as long as it's not a skyscraper. you
right.
know.
Well, I think some of the argument was that people like their little village of Plymouth. And if we're talking industrial parks, I don't see the conflict there.
Well, when you have the Board of Selectmen who unanimously supported it,
Yep.
and you have an appointing authority that appointed by the Board of Selectmen get up and speak against it,
Yeah.
it kind of confused me where you had a body being a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals get up and speak against it and state that if they want to go above the 35 feet, they can come before that particular adjudicatory board for a special permit, and if it's something that's good, they'll approve it.
Well, the whole point was we don't want to have them go
Well,
through
the
the
point
special
was
permit.
that they wouldn't have to go through that special permit process, because the steps right now is, on a special permit, you got to go to the local steering committee, with a presentation to them, who advise the planning board, and then that developer will have to go before the planning board, so the planning board can give an advisory report and opinion to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
And then they go to a zoning board of appeals public hearing, right? And even if it's approved, anybody who lives near or adjacent to it, or anybody who's aggrieved, can appeal that decision.
Okay.
So, and if it's appealed, that could take years.
So you could tie it up forever.
You could
basically.
tie it up forever.
Right.
And one of the things we need to do in Plymouth is get more businesses.
So there's a opinion throughout the town that certain boards and/or committees are business unfriendly,
Yes.
which I always was of the opinion that no, I personally don't feel that the town was business unfriendly. So we have an industrial lands committee who spent many public meetings and time and effort putting together a report and suggesting this area become and raise up to a 75-foot level, going through that whole process. Went to town meeting and got voted down due to the fact they thought it was too big of an area.
Very close
too,
vote.
Too close. It was a close vote.
The
And
majority, but not the three-quarters.
you need the 2/3.
The 2/3. You didn't have the 2/3.
So it goes back to town meeting, eliminating one industrial park and reducing the area you could go up to 75 feet. And it gets shot down again, even though Advisory and Finance Committee voted, I think it was 11 or 12 to 1.
Yeah.
The planning board was 4 to 1, and I can't speak for that particular member, but if I remember correctly, he wanted it to follow the stretch code and be LEED certified as a requirement. That was one of the reasons that he didn't vote for it at the planning board level. And the Board of Selectmen supported it. So it was supported across the board with elected officials and the Advisory and Finance Committee.
And town meeting voted it down.
And it lost by
4 votes.
4 votes.
So that would lead me to believe maybe it wasn't presented effectively to the whole body of town meeting. Or they weren't informed? Why do you think it was voted down?
That body that voted against it. And my question would be, didn't we do a little homework beforehand and know that that body was against it?
I would have hoped that we had. So I think what needs to be done is maybe the planning board needs to do a better job, or the planning staff, or we all need to do a better job of communicating. As far as that's concerned.
Yeah, because it sounds like
I mean, we're trying to lower the tax burden on the residents of the town of Plymouth by raising the building and these buildings up in these particular areas in the industrial park. Which to me is a common sense move, especially through all the public hearings, with the Industrial Lands Use Committee and the process that it all went through. And for the chairman of the Board of Selectmen to get up and say, we need this is important to help us with our taxes, but yet it didn't pass by 4 votes.
Because of that, if that committee had...
If those 9 or 10 or 12 people had stayed... Because the vote was after lunch.
It goes back to
presentation.
It's always interesting where things are placed.
I mean, 4 votes is not a lot when it really comes down to it. But,
so it goes back to town meeting members doing their duty and staying there and maintaining quorum and you know. But I just want to say on a side, I think that the town of Plymouth does a remarkable job in preserving kind of the integrity of downtown and the waterfront and you know, the historical committee and. You know, I think they do a wonderful job kind of protecting Plymouth and what it looks like, and as a brand and a small, you know, town in New England, you know, a small community or even a village. And I think that's a trade-off. You have to have opportunity for business, and if it's a designated area like an industrial park, it sounds like it makes sense. But from the outside looking in, meaning I wasn't at, you know, town meeting witnessing this, it sounds like maybe there was a shortfall in the town meeting members actually, you know, being educated on what was being proposed. Because if you're telling me all the selectmen and all the zoning and all, you know, everybody was for it.
No, the zoning board didn't support
Zoning
it.
did not support
Okay, zoning did not.
That was the body that we were talking about.
Ah, okay, gotcha. All right, gotcha.
It would have been nice to know that they were unsupportive of that last.
That's my point. It's coming into town meeting. You usually know, okay, FinCom's going to vote this way, and selectmen this way, and planning
well,
this way.
We've got to do a better job of communicating and do a better job of presenting the reasons why, and maybe show the financials to go along with it.
Yeah.
You know, the advantages to it. And if there are any disadvantages, show the disadvantages.
Because the scuttlebutt I heard was that people didn't realize it's just in the industrial park. You know, they're thinking slippery slope. We let 75 footers into the industrial park. Well, then we're going to have one downtown.
Yeah, on the waterfront.
Well, no, because that would require a zoning change again at town meeting.
Right. But that's I think part of the problem is people don't realize that.
Mm-hmm. So it need to be presented better, communicated better.
Yeah.
And that's what has to be done.
Right, and it's, you know, when you come down to 4 votes, that's, and it's always interesting to me if you watch where things come in town meeting, and gee, if you got something that's squirrely and you want it to go one way, gee, have it after lunch, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Now, my question is, did they present? You'd mentioned, you know, for tax reasons, you know, it could be a boon for the town. Did they present projected numbers that if this passed, we would get X amount of revenue?
No.
I mean, because that would be a strong argument to someone who pays property taxes and wants services in this town. So, you know, to me, the money kind of talks, and I won't do the other part of the little rhyme, but, you know, I think if you presented to
BS wax.
Yeah, if you present it to the town and say, listen, this could potentially be $10 million in tax revenue.
BS,
I can say BS? Okay, BS walk. So, But you know what I'm saying is, if you present the money, I think it usually it turns their heads a little bit.
A little.
In my experience, maybe
Oh.
not. Not everybody. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting watching what town meeting, because in the spring rather, when that 75 was presented, it wasn't close, and now that it's closer with only 4 votes, that means that something happened in between those meetings.
Yeah, well, and we all have to realize, and you both pay taxes, I'm sure, in the town of Plymouth, like myself. And with South High School coming online, and
Ooh.
taxes from the North High School, and the taxes are only going up.
The new town hall.
And the new town hall, which is going to be paid for by meal tax.
Yeah, all going to be
Hopefully.
paid by the meal tax.
Hopefully.
Do we want to talk quickly about the?
I think it's important that you also had a group that's looking at ways to raise revenue.
Yep.
So they come up with the 5%
Yep.
tax on, what's that word, marijuana.
Oh, the pot farm. It's going to be out in
In the back of Josh's house.
yeah.
In between the nip bottles.
Balls and the pot farm. I'm
balls,
sandwiched
yeah.
right in between wrestling. I might have to move.
He's going to use the nip bottles to grow his weed in the front yard.
So,
starter plants.
Can we talk quickly about the parking garage that's not going to happen?
Sure, if you'd like. You got about 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. We worked really hard to finally get the parking garage going, and I guess they're finding underneath that parking lot a whole bunch of water and stuff that they can't build on. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Water that you can't build on, it's down by the waterfront.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could put it on floats.
Yeah. Water and other things are underneath.
So you
there.
do piers or you do pilings.
But we
it can be
can't
done
build-
at a little more cost.
Wait, which we're not going to do. I heard that project is on big.
Who'd you hear that from?
Oh, you told me.
I didn't tell you that.
No, I've
I'd
been
be
hearing
interested
that.
to find out. Oh, he's got, what do you got, little birdies at
Oh, wait a minute.
different areas?
We have the peanut gallery again.
Did you get the number off that bus, Tim?
that backed up and ran me over? Yeah.
Which bus?
All I want to do is,
I'm looking at the 853.
yeah, okay, that's super. But a good new amigo over here who came to visit us this evening has a very important auction coming up, and we're not allowed to say go to the auction.
No, don't go to the auction.
No, we're not allowed to say that.
But bid online.
But
Just kidding.
I did want to, at some point within the final minutes of the show, give them enough time to talk about the auction, because I was looking at it online today, and this is going to be dynamic.
Oh yeah, this is
Thank you.
this is a new auction that you've got with a new place and some pretty really interesting material. Talk a little bit about what's there.
Yeah. It's it's interesting. Is in it's not our normal commercial auction. What we do, it's near and dear to kind of Plymouth's heart, the Mayflower Society. So an organization that has 28,000 descendants across the country. And they've had a museum house, and I hope you've had a chance to visit it on North Street. It's the Winslow House, and it's been operating as a museum since the 1940s. And they're kind of going in a different direction. They want to make it less of a museum and more of a venue that's open to both tourists and locals. They really want to reach out to the town of Plymouth and become engaged. So along with that, thank you very much. Along with that, it's a house full of some wonderful antiques, everything from carpets to furniture to Chinese porcelain, you name it. And if they're going to open it to the public for functions and Mayflower Society functions, they're a little bit worried about someone having a cocktail and putting it down on a 17th century piece of furniture and leaving that ring. So anyways, they've decided to de-accession, which is what museums do. They either do an accession when they take something in, or a de-accession when they sell it off. And it's going to, part of their collection is going to be for sale at Memorial Hall on November 8th. We'll be conducting an auction that is open to the public and free, but some really interesting items. And a lot of the pieces are tied to descendants of the Pilgrims. Of course, the founders of Plymouth. So descendants like a few that might even be in this room, or certainly people we know. But anyways, it should be a wonderful event, and
Mr. Bruce's
the funds are going to go to really support the society's mission to continue the Mayflower and the Pilgrim legacy in town, and education and outreach. So
they might have antique nip bottles.
they might, they may have antique nip bottles.
See, you gotta check those nip bottles out.
I don't think they have antique scratch tickets, though. I don't know. I don't know if they had those back then. But anyways, it should be a great event, November 8th, Memorial Hall. Again, really something that is organic to Plymouth. So
that's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a great bunch of stuff.
What kind of items?
You name it. It's such a diverse collection. Everything from, there's a silver spoon that dates from, it's dated 1685. It's American coin silver, quite rare. We weren't making many things like that over here in the 17th century. To 18th century tavern table that's from about 1720 that a pirate could have sat at with his, ale and,
That's awesome.
all that kind of thing. So, and then some great pieces of art and books as
I get
well.
up at 4:30 in the morning every day.
It's something you could bring home, I mean, and just some wonderful things. Great pieces of art, furniture, historical artifacts, and again, a lot of it tied to the Pilgrims, and their descendants.
That's awesome.
It's going to be great. So the preview will be Thursday, and be a great opportunity to look at some things that, again, have been in a museum for 40 years or 70 years.
What was the trash day? November. Keep talking, Josh.
Oh, okay. So in any event, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to hold this auction, and again, I think it's a great thing for Plymouth. The Mayflower Society is something worth putting on your list, and going and visiting the house. They're a great organization.
Yeah, they are.
And they're a nonprofit, so go check them out. New executive director Walt Powell, great guy, and he's kind of leading the charge. You could say into the 21st century for the Pilgrim descendants. So, with that being said, back to you guys, the trash.
Back to talking trash.
Back to talking trash.
Yeah, back to the trash.
Hey, before we get to the end of the show, please remember November 1st is going to be the trash day. Go out and pick up trash on the streets everywhere that there is. If you want to get the purple bags, call Town Hall at 508-747-1620, extension 204, and tell them that you want to get involved. Be involved, and thanks for showing up, and thanks for showing up to watch the Three Amigos. Hope you got entertained, and we'll see you in 7.
Don't forget to pick up the trash.
Take the trash out, not to Josh's house.
Stop throwing it on my lawn.
Stop throwing it on Josh's lawn.